Galaga 88 feels like a weird choice for a release on the PC Engine. It seems kind of backwards and out of place, especially in comparison with the other shoot-'em-ups that we're going to get. Well, there's a lot more going on here than you can see at first glance. Galaga 88 was the third sequel to Galaxian, coming out right around the time that Namco was starting to tie all of their games together in the UGSF series. A series that brings together shooters like Galaga and Bosconian, with more far-flung titles like Dig Dug 2 and Ace Combat 3. Although it's called Galaga 88, the arcade game was released late in 1987. They just chose the title so it wouldn't seem old when January came around. The PC Engine port came fast enough that they didn't have to change the year, but for the TurboGrafx release in the US, it had to be Galaga 90. And then the Game Gear version had to be Galaga 91. And at that point, they stopped updating the title. Galaga 88 is, as the title implies, a mechanical upgrade to Galaga. If you've played the original, and if you're watching this video I expect that you have, then you're already familiar with most of what's happening here. Aliens fly in, they land in formation. After the formation is complete, they fly down and attack you. The battleships in the back can swoop down and fire a tractor beam to pull you in, and then shooting down the enemy that captured your ship will recover it and let you link up, giving you a double shot. And that's pretty much all there was to Galaga, but Galaga 88 really starts piling on. For example, at the start, you can choose if you want to have just one ship or begin with the dual ship. Beginning with the dual ship will cost you a life, but it is 100% worth it to take that. And that's because getting hit as a dual ship no longer kills you. It just reduces you back to one ship. So you don't really lose a life this way. The only reason to start with one ship is if you're a traditionalist who wants to do things the old-fashioned way, or you're doing some kind of weird challenge run where you don't want to be powered up. Once you have double ships, the two of them can now be captured, and if you recover that, then you've got a triple shot ship. It's a little bit wider than the double shot, but not by that much, and the overwhelming firepower makes up for it. Of course, if it gets hit, then you go back to a double ship. So there's absolutely no downside to powering up like this anymore. The greatest risk is if you're out of lives so that you can't recapture your ship. So that's how you play differently. As for the enemies, the patterns are a lot more complex, and they're a lot more vicious. It's like Galaga 88 saw how good people got at Galaga, and decided to make everything meaner. There's also a huge variety of new enemies. You've got little ball guys that explode and release a swarm, and of course if you kill the swarm you get extra points. Then there's the ones that get super gigantic. They have to be hit 3 times to stop them. And there's enemies that merge together to attack, just like you can. There are also bosses in the game now. Big carrier enemies that will fire shots at you while launching their own little ships. As the presence of bosses imply, there's also now an ending to the game. There are now 29 stages to complete. And if you get through them all, there's 4 different endings. Which ending you get is determined by how powerful you made your opponents. As you play the game, destroying certain large objects will cause a capsule to appear. The easiest way to collect this is by destroying asteroids, but these capsules also drop from giant enemies. Collect 2 capsules, and you gain the ability to warp. There are periodic bonus stages called Galactic Dancing, and here enemies come out and do a performance for you while a musical number plays. If you just watch the musical number, you get 10,000 points, but you can also get points for defeating the enemies, and if you destroy all of them, you get the points for defeating them plus 10,000 points. So destroying all of them is the better way to do it, but if you don't think you can because you haven't learned the pattern or something like that, you can still get plenty of points by just watching. Once Galactic Dancing is over, if you have 2 capsules, a warp opens up. Now while you still go through the same progression of stages, every time you warp, the enemies become more difficult. You go through warps 3 times, and how many times you've warped determines what ending you get. There's many more opportunities to warp than 3, though. So if you want to play strategically, until you're 3 game segments away from the ending, and then start warping. A new addition for Galaga 88 are vertically scrolling stages, but these don't really play like your standard shoot-'em-up level. You don't get a lot of things thrown at you while you're moving, and the game periodically stops so that a complete formation will appear. So the scrolling just acts as a bridge between stages. Naturally, when you run out of lives, it's game over, and similar to the original Galaga, you get a report on how you did. Unfortunately, there's no way to continue, so getting a game over sends you all the way back to the start. On the other hand, if you're finding the game to be too easy, on the title screen you can hold up and then press run, and that puts the game into hard mode. Galaga 88 is a game with plenty of fans in Japan, but there's also a sizable number of people who find the game to be too old-fashioned. And while I could see somebody saying that in 1988, these days it would fit right in with the movement of revamped arcade classics. Even Namco's done quite well for themselves by taking Pac-Man and putting a slight spin on things. If Galaga 88 was released in 2008, I don't think anyone would have batted an eye. This is a really fun classic-style shooter. It might not be as elegantly simple as the original Galaga, but the additions really fit in with the classic game's style. You can tell that this is the extension of Galaxian and Galaga, and I think it works pretty well as that.